It's really simple, people. I collect friends, and jars are just part of that process. Some folks collect jars. They may have a collection of $53 jars. Some collectors who have $1 million collection. But those folks can get together in the same room and appreciate each other's collection. Serving as president is really humbling to me because I'm relatively a new collector to the hobby. I'm one of the young guys.
So this is where that ball logo would have been, blood plate. So,
you know, these are the jars that got us through World War I. Those are the jars that got us through the Great Depression and World War II. You know, those are the jars that made it possible for us to be able to be the country that we are today. You know, coming in and spending 3 or 4 days with folks that I haven't seen for a year, spend time with them, catch up on their family, how they're doing, you know, what's been going on in their lives. It's so much more than jars. It's really a family atmosphere. Folks who have known each other for years get together, and folks who have only met over social media. But when you see them, you know, you'd think that they'd known each other for, 15, 20 years. And there's just that camaraderie within the general collecting hobby.
The people in the hobby are phenomenal. I look forward to this convention like more than I do Christmas.
My hair looks exactly like this, but it's another.
It's like your family, you know, you're all in the hobby and you love the hobby, and that's the best part of it is the people.
32 years now I've been collecting glass, and I've been doing fruit jars for around about 20, 25 years. It's definitely an addictive hobby. Beeswax dipped to copy the original patent.
When you have a certain excitement about a hobby, you want to share that excitement. It's not about, oh, hey, I got to make $1. It's about coming out and spending time with people that you may only see once or twice a year.
When I started in the hobby in 1979, I was the youngest member of my local bottle club. Now, seniority-wise, I'm the oldest.
Well, just have something in common, and over the years you keep those same people and you keep going because, you know, you want to keep that connection.
Every year that friendship gets deeper and deeper. You look forward to seeing people. And buying and selling the jars is great, but it's really seeing your friends again.
We're just passing them on from one generation to the next with the history and the knowledge, and I hope the younger generation stays excited.
You know, you only have so many years. If you find something you love, just go do it.
Jar Club has always been in Muncie, as far as I know. So it's only natural for them to want to have it in Muncie. I'm Mary Harper. I am the wife of the late Jeff Harper, who loved ball jars, and only ball jars, but he collected thousands of different jars. One day I said, you've got enough of all jars, we've got to do something with these jars. Got to be able to see them, they're not visible in a box. So let's think about it. So we did, and came up with our jar museum, which most people do not bother to cut out walls and build a museum in their house, but we did. We like to show it off. Anybody who would come to the house was like, oh my gosh. Cannot tell you how many people would say, my grandma used to can, but I'd never really seen these jars, but I remember her canning. It's part of his personal history because of his great-grandfather, Frank Seaball, who was one of the 5 Ball brothers and invented a very important machine. Rather than making them all by hand and glass blowing, he invented the first machine to be able to do it mass production. And then one day, the president of Ball State University happened to be in town. We showed President Mearns the collection. He was like, his eyes got real wide. He couldn't believe all these jars were here. It came time for me to think about what to do with his collection after he passed. I just knew it should go back to Muncie. I didn't know how any of this was going to happen, but in my gut, I just knew they needed to go back home.
The Harper collection, Jeff and Mary's collection, is an amazing collection, probably one of the most complete ball collections that I'm aware of. Jeff himself was a legend in this hobby. The donation coming back to Muncie is a dream come true for jar collectors.
It just seems right, and I know it's right. I think Jeff would be very happy to have it back. So that's the story of how it came to Muncie.
A lot of folks will tell you collar is king. You'll have some folks that don't want anything to do with collar. Some folks, you know, like the odd closures and things like that really don't come in a lot of collar. There's so many different things that people collect. You know, some of the rarer collars, harder to find collars. Just the uniqueness of a jar, what we call the character of a jar, whether that's bubbles or just the crudeness of the manufacturing of that jar. There's such a spectrum of color in a lot of your older antique jars. Everything from just general aqua through clear glass. You know, clear glass in the 1800s was not an easy process to make. They had to get all the impurities out. So when they would remove the impurities, they would add other chemicals to it. What happened over time is the sunlight, the UV rays, can actually change the color of a clear jar to what in the hobby we call SEA, or sun-collared amethyst. And that can range from a light pink to a darker purple. There are cornflower blue jars, there are cobalt jars, but you know, you have everything from your amber jars, your light amber, to your dark amber, olive collared. There are just a plethora, I mean just a ton of different colors and shades in most jars. Another area that folks really like to collect is errors, be that in the spelling. It's not uncommon to find jars with spelling errors. You have to think about the molds and the time period. These molds were being carved backwards, you know, so the letters were being carved reverse, so it's not uncommon to find. Some folks really focus their collections on those. That is not your typical collection.
I'm the owner and the publisher of the Red Book, which is the Bible for the hobby.
You'll hear some people say it's the Bible of the collecting hobby. It provides a listing of what jars are known.
And it's a 500-page book. It describes with line drawings and written descriptions what these jars are. Colors, price guides, patent information, so people could take out in the field and understand exactly what jar they're looking at and a relative price guide as to what it's worth. So when you go to an antique mall or something, you can pick it up and understand exactly what the jars are, and the description will explain to you what the difference is between that jar and the next one. So very valuable from the beginner to the advanced collector. I purchased it from Doug Laybourne, who purchased it from the original person, Alice Creswick, and it's been around since 1970. Our hobby is very well blessed to have a good basic journal or book that people can follow for a little bit of direction. You know, in my real life, I'm a private person, and you kind of hide in the shadows, you know, but now you're a bit of a minor celebrity. And when I first did the Red Book and started sending out copies, I got a couple back in the mail. Where's my autograph? What am I supposed to sign, Babe Ruth?
We have an annual convention in January that is Mecca for fruit jar collectors around the country. We get visitors coast to coast.
The primary focus of it is jars. And there's lots of shows all over the country that really focus on bottles, but the Muncie show is 90% jar collectors.
You know, people from California, people from Florida, people from Maine, all over come to Muncie in January just to collect jars and trade jars and tell stories.
What's really unique about this show is that it's several days long.
Some people come in 2 and 3 days before the actual show. We have a convention center that has a hotel connected to it, and we're able to have people come in, they set up their wares to sell in their rooms. That's a big draw for our convention.
What we call room hopping, probably the highlight of this show. From the time we get to the hotel, our doors stay open until we go to bed of a night. The group is constantly in and out of rooms, trading jars, selling jars, buying jars, and this is all in advance of the show. The show itself is Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And those first couple days is really just old friends getting together, meeting new folks and selling jars out of their rooms, trading stories of what they found over the past year. Thursday, we try to focus on education.
Seminars and different places in the area to see some history of jar making that makes it nice for people coming here.
Friday is starts off a little formal. It's our annual business meeting. And then we do a show and tell. Folks that come and attend the conference bring an item. And then Saturday, is the annual show, the largest jar show in the country. We typically have 80 plus folks who set up to sell and trade items, and several hundred folks through the door that come through to, looking for their next treasure.
The Muncie show is a big deal. Matt and Monty, David Rittenhouse, all those guys, that takes months and months and months. It does take a lot of work. It doesn't sound like it just because we're just a jar group. But like any other group, you have to have structure. You have to have a president, a vice president, a treasurer. But when you get everybody there in January and all these people start flying in and you see all these people smiling and just happy, it puts it all full circle.
If you collect fruit jars, you need to come to Muncie at least once. Just like Hershey, Pennsylvania is to the old car hobby, Muncie is to the antique fruit jar hobby. It's the place to be.
Muncie is the capital of jars.
Muncie equaled jars, no matter where you were.
The Ball family, really drove their business here from Muncie, Indiana. This is where it really took off for jars.
Ball Brothers was really huge back in the day, churning out millions of jars. So many they didn't have any place to put them.
I think it's really important that we're able to host it here with that storied past.
Muncie has enough people that were interested in jars that they formed a club.
Having a physical location that folks can, relate to jar collecting is really important.
Muncie was the epicenter, and that's where we're going to have our convention, and there's no place like home, and Muncie was home.
In 1880, Frank C. and Edmund B. Ball borrowed $200 from their uncle to buy the Wooden Jacket Can Company, a small manufacturing business in Buffalo, New York. The brothers made tin cans encased in wooden jackets to hold kerosene, paints, or varnishes. Once discovering that the tin corroded, they experimented with using glass to encase tin jackets. In 1886, Frank C. and Edmund, along with their two brothers, George and William, created the Ball Brothers Glass Manufacturing Company in East Buffalo, New York. Unfortunately, a fire struck the Buffalo plant in 1887, and the brothers looked to move their glass factory elsewhere. They traveled to western Ohio and east central Indiana as natural gas deposits promised cheap natural resources. The Ball brothers opened their glass factory in Muncie in 1888 after receiving free natural gas, a 7-acre factory site, and $5,000 from boosters in the city. By 1900, the Muncie factory led the nation in the production of fruit jars.
Jeff and I are both Munsonians, although he grew up on the north side of Burris and I grew up on the south side. Muncie was a part of our upbringing, and hearing about Ball Brothers and making so much money over there and making so many jars, and it was a big part of Muncie's economy.
Once they moved to Muncie, they really started expanding their jar manufacturing. Through their lines, they've made some of the most iconic jars.
1/3 of all the glass that was used for home canning and all of that was made here in Muncie, Indiana. It was a tremendous boom to the city to have a major employer like this, a company that was really part of industrial America in a big sense. It was a big business, it was not a small business. We still talk about the glass jars here in Muncie. We still talk about how important this was.
The role of the Ball family in the early growth of Muncie was crucial. They were really the first big get of the local business leaders. The discovery of natural gas in the 1880s had triggered rapid growth in Muncie. There was a lot of business interest in coming there, but the Ball family, the Ball brothers, and their canning business was the big business that showed up. They got a lot of incentives from the local business community, and it really established Muncie as an industrial center.
General Motors came here after World War I. And so now you've got this profile of Muncie, which some people have referred to, of an industrial city characterized by jars and cars. That becomes the story, so to speak. So what happens in 1962? Ball has to make a decision, and the decision is, are we going to continue to operate here in Muncie, or are we going to go someplace else?
The company moved its manufacturing operations in the early 1960s, but it keeps its headquarters in Muncie until the end of the 20th century.
When Ball quit making glass in 1962, we didn't realize what kind of a departure that was, because it reflected what was going on in the larger society.
They finally leave and go to Colorado in 1998. Legacy lasts in the name of the university, which is now the largest employer in Muncie and has been for quite a while, in the name of the hospital, and it also lasts in the remaining presence of two family foundations, the George and Frances Ball Foundation and the Ball Brothers Foundation.
There's little tiny micro cracks in the gasket, but it is definitely a period. We're down to 30 seconds.
It was definitely the legacy of the Balls that helped get the convention and the show to Muncie, because for years the convention was in Indianapolis. Once it came here and people found out that it was a real plus to be where the Ball jar was made, it seems to have stuck. The show and the convention bring in lots of people.
The thing about jars is, with our group, there's 80–90% of the people are just awesomely willing to teach you or tell you. They don't want to one-up you. If anything, they want you to call them and say, hey, look what I just found. So now that might give you a possibility of owning it. It might not, but at the end of the day, that person's going to thank you because you looked out for them. This is one of the only groups that I can get with, and when you're there and you're with the people, you're not really thinking about bills. You're not thinking about all the stressful things. That's all hits when you're packing your stuff up and you get in your car and you're like, oh, I gotta go back to my normal life.
Just about everything I learned about collecting and about Ball jars came from Dick Cole. He worked for Ball for about 25 years as a chemist, but he was sort of the unofficial curator of their museum. And when headquarters moved to Denver, he came to Minnetrista. It was great. He was here and available to answer anybody's questions. And through him, then I met a lot of the other collectors, including Jeff Harper. He and a lot of the other collectors are really interested in the manufacturing process. And they can tell you every little quirk of every jar. You've lost the Dick Coles, you've lost the Dick Rollers, Phil Robinson, whose goal was to collect one of every jar ever made. The collectors who are trying to pass on their knowledge that they have collected over the years from the people like Dick Cole and Dick Roller and Phil Robinson, and they are trying to pass it on to a new generation.
3 here, and they all came with pictures from Muncie, like the post office, Muncie High School.
Before the 20th century, methods of food preservation were not always the safest of options. From early attempts in France during the Napoleonic Wars to the use of tin and steel cans in the 19th century, canning foods was time-consuming, expensive, and often unreliable. That changed in 1858 with John Mason's patent for an improved screw neck jar that could be easily sealed. By the late 19th century, Frank and Edmund Ball had patented glass machines that could produce such jars quickly and inexpensively. In 1905, Francis Ball put pen to paper and started to collect and record recipes related to canning from family and friends. She and her husband George, who served as secretary and treasurer of the Ball Brothers Company, began testing the recipes in their home kitchen to ensure quality and safety. The resulting book was titled The Correct Method of Preserving Fruit. By 1919, the new version of the book carried a new title, The Ball Blue Book of Canning and Preserving Recipes, or more commonly called the Blue Book. Home canning can be accomplished in two ways, pressure canning or water bath canning. Both processes began with collecting fruits, vegetables, or even meats. Once prepared, the jars are heated to sterilize them. After filling the jars, a lid and band are screwed to the top of the jar. For high acidic foods, such as fruits, jams, tomatoes, pickles, and vinegars, the jars can be placed in a boiling hot water bath and boiled for 10 minutes or so. For low acidic foods, such as meats, other vegetables, chilies, or salsas, jars need to be boiled at a higher temperature in a pressure cooker. These processes produce safe, shelf-stable foods that can be made and enjoyed in the home.
Some people just couldn't believe it. She's donating that? Why is she doing that? Why isn't she selling it? And I just absolutely didn't want to break up that collection. It's too important a collection. It's beautifully done, and it needs to be available for people to see.
Mary's decision to donate that was really important to the club. As we talk about needing to get younger folks involved, what better way to do that than through involvement with a university, where young folks are able to see that collection on a regular basis.
What makes the collection special and different, I think, is that Jeff was the great-grandson of Frank C. Ball, and he got interested in collecting and, of course, had one of everything, but really hunted down the special jars. He absolutely had the best collection.
You know, I think the state of the hobby is really strong right now. New folks are coming in all the time, different backgrounds, different political beliefs, different socioeconomic backgrounds. The hobby is really diverse. And I think Muncie in general plays a big part in that.
My guess is people are still going to collect because people like to acquire things. Ball jars are still being made, so it's not going out of anybody's memory. They're still canning in ball jars. It's going to take a while, a long time, for the presence of Ball in Muncie to go away.
You have to have a hobby, and jar collecting is a fabulous one to have. It saved me. I'd had a 30-year addiction to alcohol and drugs, and as I was cleaning up, it gave me something to focus on besides where am I going to get my next fix. The jars had my full undivided attention. And now it's more about the people. You see them once or twice a year, and when you see them, it's just like they're family.
It's a great experience because the people that you meet are so passionate about their hobby. We've made some really true friends through our travels and association with the club.
Some really bad jars.
10, 12 years ago, I couldn't find parts for my jars. So then that's what led me into producing reproduction fruit jar parts. You know, I want to make sure that other people can enjoy the hobby, finish their jars and enjoy their jars. You got a good deal on it. It sounds silly, but sometimes when you hit a jar and you cannot finish it, it's like a hitch. Just not completing it isn't right. Sometimes put a lot of hours into figuring out how they did it 150 years ago and then recreating that so that when I'm done, what I just did looked the part.
When I come to these, it's all about the people. Yeah, the jars are there or the bottles, but it's really about having that friendship and, you know, that knowledge share, that information transfer, because I don't know everything, but when you have the different collectors from the different generations come in, they're telling you, hey, this is this mold number, this is where this was made, or this glass factory. Or hey, did you look at this jar? This is an air jar, and this is what happened here, or this was the air in the mold. But it takes everybody to give you that information. That's the best part about the hobby, is gathering all that knowledge to carry on to the future, to hopefully, I'll be the old timer at some point. I can do the same and transfer that knowledge to them.